the main character of the film, Dr. Professor Norman Cornett. Please come forward. So first off, it's such an intriguing topic and a very interesting story by all means. So I'll just say first off, if anybody in the audience has some questions immediately, there should be some microphones. I'm not real positive. And so please wait for the microphone and ask your question into the microphone so everyone can hear. Are there any questions? Yes, down here up front.
I have a question for Dr. Cornett. Had you seen the film before, and what is it like watching yourself and watching the film? Is it a kind of a bizarre experience?
Thanks for the question. Well, in keeping with my dialogic philosophy of education, that creativity requires that the artist, the individual, the student remain uncensored, unedited, and unplugged. When Ms. Obamsawin proposed making the documentary, I accepted on the condition that I never see any excerpt during the shoot, that I not see the final cut, and that I not lay my eyes on the documentary until the public at large did. So at the world premiere, I didn't even know the title. And it was an unusual experience.
Yes, right there in the back.
Hi, I guess my main question is, given the way that you taught the class, the freedom that you gave the students to express, how did you possibly evaluate them at the end of the semester? Because I've taught classes before and tried to use some of those same techniques, but at the end of the day, I was always faced with, how do I differentiate one from another based on the university's imposed grading system?
Fair question. First of all, as you know, as a professor, we always have to establish a syllabus. And the syllabus lays out the course evaluation. And as Leon Moshe, who's from Kenya, said in the film, 80 to 90%, it was very clearly indicated on the syllabus that that was the evaluation. And you heard how much writing they did. To all intents and purposes, we morphed into a creative writing workshop. We became a think tank. The very first course, you have what's called the add-drop period, when students can add themselves to the course or they can subtract themselves. And I would clearly enunciate that what you are about to experience is the university's version of Survivor. And so get out while the getting's good, because it was hard work. You saw the Right Honorable Paul Martin, Prime Minister of Canada. You saw Lucien Bouchard, Premier of Quebec. In fact, every single head of the parties of Canada and of Quebec were our dialogue partners. You cannot invite these individuals unless you come to the table well prepared. And the proof is in the pudding. The word got out, and this is why the former Prime Minister was our dialogue partner. In fact, 3 days after he was our guest, he called us from Ottawa, the capital of Canada, and he said, Professor Cornett, I have to tell you that I have very little time anymore to go to the university, so I have to restrict myself to graduate seminars. And I taught at the undergraduate level. He says, but I have never had the experience at a university that I lived in your classroom 3 days ago. And the word got out on the Capitol, around Parliament Hill, because I don't take sides politically on any of these issues. I see the professor as a field guide. And so that was where the evaluation came in. And not everybody got A's. And I kept, this is why my office was so full. If anybody wanted to challenge the grades, I could show them literally all the work my students had done.
Alanis, you had the privilege of being able to speak and present to his classes several times in the course of his work. So what were some of the topics that you, or how was it working with him in that level instead of making a film about him?
Well, I must tell you, it wasn't all that easy because previously to my visit in the classroom, he would have his students watch a certain film that I made. And there were quite a few films that those students saw over a period of time. I began to be invited to his class in 2001, and I went about 3-4 times a year, not always for my work, and sometimes I would go and attend other sessions with different people, writers, filmmakers, playwrights, very interesting people. And to sit there and watch the debate is really, really special. And in my case, I was there several times. And one time I came and I had made a film about homeless people in Montreal that are our people. And it's called No Address. And what he does when you go into the classroom, you saw that woman sitting there and he's reading paragraphs that some of the students wrote, and you don't know who wrote those things, and he's not shy about reading it like it is. So he was reading one of the students' writing, and in it was a very violent resistance against homeless people, saying things like, get off your ass, I'm tired of walking down the street and you're sitting there on the sidewalk and you're an embarrassment to society and you're lazy, and get to work. And it was unbelievable, very angry and violent words towards, in this case, our people. And I was really shocked and I started to cry. I couldn't stop crying, can you imagine? And but it forced me and the students to have a real dialogue. And I told them, I'm happy because this is honest, and a lot of people think just like that writer. This is their impression they have of our people, and it makes difficult relations in life. And so, I start telling them that it's possible that anybody in the world end up on the street. It's not just our people, it's not just poor people, it's not just people that are into a depression. There are things that happens in your life and you never know where you end up. And so we dialogue, and I talked a lot about the journeys that some of our people are into, and all the difficulties and the hardship and the educational system, and many things. And I felt very good about the dialogue with the students, because I said, someday you're going to be leaders of the country, and maybe you'll remember me then, and maybe you'll be a person that can help our people instead of putting them down like you did just now. And I went so many times a year that I developed a kind of relationship with the students, in terms that I always felt welcome there, and every time I came there, a lot of the students would contact me and being happy that I was back in the classroom. So that by the time I said yes, that I was going to direct this film, and I had somebody ask these students for me that I wanted to interview, not one of them refused. And so it was very intimate and very special time when I was interviewing each student individually. So as a result, I feel that through my presence in the classroom and through these films that I made, and the knowledge that they got about where I come from and who we are, has brought something for the future. That kind of relation that we develop just by arguing and talking and explaining. I think that's what makes a difference in the world and in how to relate with people and how to stop having racist feelings and not be afraid to address anyone, no matter what background they come from.
Any questions? Yes, down here.
Dr. Cornett, I have a question for you. I find the movie very inspiring from the point of view of learning, or how we unlearn a lot of things we were taught since high school. So my question to you is, have you ever thought about reaching out to the business community, where grades or evaluation is not that important, where people focus on results? For example, they can see the result of the creativity that you could bring out from people.
I do dialogue with the business community, and happily so, because the parameters are different. I don't have any specific connections as far as teaching. So maybe that's an avenue to explore further. I'm very much focused on continuing dialogue. In fact, just last week, I led a dialogic session on the relationship between the arts, mental health, and psychiatry with the head of psychiatry for all the English hospitals in Montreal. This particular specialist, internationally renowned, of Indian origin, is also a poet and a painter. So we had quite a variety of people that participated in the seminar. And sometimes I think it's important, because the baseball season has just started, it's important to switch up your pitches. So you're quite right. Drawing on different pools of knowledge, whether it be economic or whether it be political. It's not something that I can claim to have worked in, though I have invited some major business figures.
There was a question down here, yeah.
First to say, just I'm so grateful for your work over the years, and also for Ms. Abramson for your films that always bring forward the truth, and to dig that up and to make us see things that we may not always be able to see. And so I really appreciate that. I was curious about the flow of the film, which first focused very much on your career as a professor, your teacher, how you affected the students, and then it moved into the relationship further and deeper into the family, into your wife, into your children. It was really bringing you into this other relationship. So first is this very public relationship with your classroom, and then into this very intimate relationship and viewpoint of your family. So I was wondering if you could comment on that, and also to find out how your wife is as well.
For me? As I went to the classroom, and as I developed more knowledge about Dr. Cornett, I also knew that his wife had been hit by breast cancer, and that it was a very difficult time. And I met Laura. She came to my house one time to a party that I was having, and I was very impressed, and I could see what a good person she was. And so over the time, I wanted to interview her. I asked her if I could do so. And I think Dr. Cornett didn't know where I was going at that time, but I did go to their house, and she had so much to offer as a human being, as a person who wanted so badly to live, and she was just so generous with her mind, with children. She was just a very, very different person. and I felt that it was very valuable to have her in the film and to hear her own wisdom and her own generosity and love that she had for all. And those were the reason. And I felt that it really gave more value to the story. And she obviously was quite a pillar for her husband and her children. And I am not sorry that I branched out to that. I feel that it has to do with family. I didn't want to isolate him and just portray him as a professor and that's it. And I think that her presence really enriched the story.
Yeah, this was entirely Ms. Obamswin's directorial decision. Keep in mind, I had no idea that the children had been screened or filmed. They never said a word to me, and that was the understanding. She is a full-fledged artist, and she works in other media as well, in print, and so the first time I ever saw the film, I was blown away. But she has a sixth sense, and she really picked up on the source of life for myself and for our family. I was amazed when the three children were there and the Grand Canyon. I didn't see that coming at all. I think chronologically it helps to realize Ms. Obamswin has made a substantial film here. This is 80 minutes long. That's a considerable chunk. And this does require a fair amount of editing. And to give you the timeline, Laura was diagnosed with one of, if not the most aggressive form of breast cancer in 2002. This is 5 full years before the events happened that you see in the documentary. And in fact, the way it happened in 2002, we were heading to the Grand Canyon. I had just finished teaching the soul and soul music. We had the composers, the musicians there. And Laura had gone, she had done a self-examination, and she had just had a mammogram a month before. And they had seen nothing. But Laura found a lump, and she said, I think this is something. And she went in, and she wasn't wrong. And we got the news the day after the Soul and Soul music course. And realizing that it was one of, that there's a very technical name for this kind of cancer, this breast cancer, but that it was one of the most aggressive. They said we must operate immediately and try and stop it from getting into the lymph nodes. And so I remember vividly walking back into the building, and everybody thought I had gone to the Grand Canyon, as I did every summer. And they said, what are you doing here? And then I said, and so we didn't go that year, obviously. And the cancer is there. There's, of course, the radiology